o'clock. Good evening and welcome to the League of Women Voters of the Ripon Area Forum. What the heck do those referendums mean? And we are pleased to have with us two clerks. We have Naomi Miller from the city of Ripon and Kathleen Morris from the town of Brooklyn. And we're delighted to have a clerk from the Green Lake area with us tonight because a significant number of our members are from the Green Lake area. So we're going to start with Naomi, and she'll give a little introduction, a little background on herself, and then Kathy will. And then I think Naomi has a PowerPoint to help explain these. And they will take questions as we go along, so you can raise your hand and I'll call on you. And we're just going to be really relaxed about this tonight and learn some things. So go ahead, Naomi.
Hello, everyone. My name is Naomi Miller, and I am the city clerk for here in Ripon. I have been here for 2 years. Before that, I was a clerk treasurer in the state of Indiana, and I did that for 5 years. So I've got about 7 years, I guess, of experience thus far, and I really enjoy what I do. Now, I'll let my colleague Kathy introduce herself.
I'm Kathleen Morris from the town of Brooklyn. I've been the clerk there for about 5 years. I kind of stopped in to help the previous clerk because she had some health issues, and I just ended up staying when she left. Kind of how I got in there. Before that, I was treasurer, so I didn't work with treasurer for the county for 30 years for Green Lake. And I didn't work as much with the election at that time, but I've learned a lot. So right now, I'm working for the town of Brooklyn as clerk. I also was county supervisor, town treasurer.
Do you have a lot of local government experience, which is helpful because we have local government. We have a home rule state, so definitely buck stops here. Okay.
Well, I've got a little bit of a PowerPoint to try and help Kathy and I go through and dissect this a little bit. I'm not going to get real detailed into the weeds there. We'll try and keep this as surface as we can. There's a lot of legalness behind the scenes on this, and that's out of my expertise range. So I will share with you what they have kind of taught us and been sharing with us, and hopefully that answers a lot of your questions for the upcoming election. Let's see. Okay, here we go. So here is the very top of the notice that we got. So notice is hereby given that an election to be held in several towns, villages, wards, and election districts of the state of Wisconsin on Tuesday, August 13th, 2024. The following questions will be submitted to a vote to the people pursuant to law. 2023 Assembly Joint Resolution 6 Enrolled Joint Resolution. What is the purpose of the amendments? I think we need to start at the very beginning. I think everybody's probably with me on that because sometimes you need to understand the background a little bit. I'm not going to go really deep into the background, but we want to kind of figure out where and why they're pushing for these to pass or to not pass. We need to understand the background. So on this, the current Wisconsin law authorizes the governor to accept federal funds. Now, what are the federal funds? The federal funds would be such as your ARPA dollars, your
disaster relief,
your COVID funds from, and this is when it actually kind of started, this was for the COVID. And when Governor Evers used this, that's the second point, legislature was unhappy with how he was distributing the funds, which is where a lot of this has stemmed from, is that distribution of those monies. There's a lot of money besides just the COVID, and maybe you can help me out with this a little. As far as what he gets, they also get, I believe, any sort of agriculture goes to him, I believe is what I read. There is anything for emergency reasons and purposes. Go ahead if you.
No, I'm not that familiar with what the government
my background in local government is administrative. So when you have a natural disaster, say like Appleton is having right now, I don't believe that they got a declaration, but typically what you would do is you would declare a state of emergency at the local level. Right. And then that gets kicked up to the governor, who then declares it a disaster area. And then as soon as it's it's declared a disaster area, that begins the process for requesting federal funds to help take care of the disaster. Flood, I hate floods. They're the disaster that keeps on giving, because you not only have to mitigate where homes are, you've got black mold, it just never stops. So then there is a formula for that. The funds come down from the federal government to the state, and the state combines with those funds so that it's basically, at least it used to be, 87.5% of the cost of the disaster are relief funds. And then at the local level, you pay like 12.5% is your match for disaster relief. And it's always come down through the governor. The Medicare and Medicaid funds also come down as like block grants. So that's...
He receives the emergency funding, but he also has non-emergency funding that the governor does receive, and he does have that distribution that he is able to do with those. So there's a lot of different areas that he gets funding from.
And the executive branch has the administrative infrastructure to distribute those funds, and there is a process for doing that. It's not like the governor sits in his office and decides who's going to get the money. There is a procedural infrastructure in place for distribution of those funds.
Yeah, just like with COVID, when you got COVID dollars, again, I was in Indiana at this point, so I'm going to kind of share my end, and I assume it was that way for most states, but you had to apply to the state for whatever you were spending that dollar amount on. So if you were buying masks and hand sanitizer and extra security and several different, there's listings and listings of areas that you could actually apply for, you would submit that into the state, and then it would go through their process at the state and their legislature, and then they would send you what money back that was allocated to you.
In our town, they just determined what amount of money we would get. I don't really know what it was based on, but I did not have to apply. We did not have to, well, we had to apply, but we didn't have to designate what we would be spending it on. But after we spend the money, we have to tell them what we spent them on, the money on. So, in our case, we upgraded some of our systems. There's different things, but we didn't have to explain that before we got the money.
Yes, we didn't either. It was always after the money was spent. Yeah, which was good. It was good money. It was good for all the local communities, including Ripon.
Cal?
Does any of the money that comes from the feds actually earmarked or designated? A certain percent has to go for this, or do say they get X amount of dollars?
For the most,
they can just, the government can decide.
I think let's repeat the question so the people at home have it in so they can hear it.
So what Cal is asking is that if we get money from the federal government, is it earmarked as far as what percentage goes where and how that is actually spent? Generally speaking, no, but there could be, we'll put it that way. I guess there could be a way, but generally speaking, no. It's just, this is what the federal government says, this is the chunk of money, and this is going to this state, and this is going to this state, and then it's kind of left up to the governor because that's kind of their role, is to figure out how to distribute that within their state.
And those are funds that are not allocated by the legislature because their role is to develop the budget and then allocate funds based on the revenues that we get. These are typically unexpected revenues.
We'll call it a bonus, if you will. It's like money you don't plan on. It was not money that was, you budget for your household for the year. It's not something that you are prepared for. It's an extra. So Governor Evers, of course, legislature's unhappy with him with the use of the distribution of the money, and I think it was like $6 billion, I think is what Wisconsin got or something like that. I can't remember the exact dollar amount. But the assumption was that, and this is hearsay, is how I would verbalize this, but the assumption is that Governor Evers would have vetoed it if any changes had been made to legislature as far as them trying to do what they're doing now, as far as saying, hey, we want that control. We don't want you to have that much power to distribute it. They know he's going to veto it. We know he's going to veto that.
Yeah, and I think it's important, and League has always maintained that we don't care who the governor is. These are administrative powers delegated by the Constitution of the state of Wisconsin.
Correct.
One of the things that we'll talk about in a little bit is the legislature has authority to do some things, but not everything, because the concern about this is that it disrupts the balance of power between the appropriations branch of government as well as the administrative branch of government. There's a reason that was created in the Constitution.
Well, and you kind of can run into a little bit of a snafu, if you will, that recently happened because legislature delayed funding. They chose to delay this funding, and Governor Evers was asking for this money to distribute it, and they were not giving it up. And so our governor had to sue the legislative body in order to get it, and he won. So he was able to actually do that distribution. So that's kind of one of those scenarios. That's the money we're talking about. This is money that he gets in, and he's wanting to actually distribute it and give it to whomever it is here in the state. And that legislative body was roadblocking him, if you will. Okay. And here it kind of goes back to what we had. I didn't have the slide in front of me, so I couldn't even answer. But what money does the governor accept? So we were just talking about the different type of things. So he can accept any sort of these funds for education, the promotion of health, the relief of indigency, the promotion of agriculture, or any other purpose other than the administration of the tribal or any individual funds of Wisconsin Indians. The governor, on behalf of the state, is authorized to accept the funds so made available. So if you look at each one of those topics, that's a wide variety. That's a wide range. So there is a lot of funding that will actually come across his desk. Down below, it actually goes into a little bit more, and it's talking about about the federal money, and special projects, emergency employment opportunities, different things that the Board of Regents can accept money on behalf of the state. Now, let's get into the fun part that's causing everybody to question what's going on.
We're going to do question one.
Question one.
Yep, so we're going to go to question one. Am I right up there? Perfect, okay. Go ahead. Why don't you read it, Karen? You can read it.
You want me to read it? Oh, it says, shall Section 35, paren 1 of Article 4 of the Constitution be created to provide the legislator may not delegate its sole power to determine how money shall be appropriated.
So down at the bottom, because I really have to take it to a place where I can understand it, and I've gotten a lot of information. Some of it came from my fearless leader. She's hiding in the back now. Lisa Freiberg just came in, the Fond du Lac County Clerk. Hi, Lisa. Some of it has come from the League of Women Voters. Some of it has come from the state. I've seen videos. I've just kind of tried to watch everything and listen and read to try and glean what exactly are they saying. So my little interpretation, if you will, at the bottom, it says, legislature may not delegate its sole power to determine how money should be distributed. That's my takeaway for question one, and that's basically what I would say question one is for, okay? We'll go here. So go ahead, I'll let you read that one too.
Oh, number two, you want me to read?
It's on the back page up there, the top.
Oh, this. The Wisconsin Constitution requires the legislature to appropriate funds from the state treasury only by passing a law, which requires a vote by both houses of the legislature. Wisconsin Constitutional Article 8, subsection 2.
Yep.
Question 1 would add a new provision to say that the legislature cannot delegate the sole power to appropriate funds. So a yes vote would create a new provision of the Wisconsin Constitution that would prohibit the legislature from delegating its duty that he pass a law in order to appropriate money from the Treasury under the Wisconsin Constitution. A no vote would not change anything, right?
Correct.
Correct. And I did revisit the Wisconsin Constitution today in looking specifically at this question 1, because this seems to be the more vague of the two.
Yes.
And as I was reading the administrative powers of the governor, it occurred to me, and League has had a long time position in opposition of line item veto. We don't care who the governor is. We don't care if it's a Republican or a Democrat or an independent. We have had a decades-old position in opposition to line item veto. And if the legislature were to address that issue and remove it, you would eliminate the possibility of what I believe they would consider appropriation when the governor uses the line item veto, because there have been significant policy and monetary changes made with a line item veto. And that would not disrupt the balance of power that the Constitution set up for those two branches of government. Does anybody have questions about this one? You said that it's been, as clerks, have you seen, and Lisa may want to comment on this too, that people skip the first one?
Yeah, and they go straight to the second one.
What is that, human behavior?
And then
thing?
most of them that I've listened to, it's like they go through they'll go to the second question, they'll discuss the second one, and then they'll refer back to the first one, but there's no actual looking deep and diving into that first question and understanding it. So to me, I found some of the videos I watched and stuff to be a little vague. It's like I wanted to understand that first question a little bit better. So yeah, I just found a lot of people skipping it.
So the League, in transparency, the League does have a position on both of these questions, and that is no, to vote no. Basically, it is a policy issue, and it's determining that there becomes an imbalance in the branches of government and the authority of each branch.
Okay, now we will go to the fun one that everybody likes, is question number 2. Allocation of federal monies, shall Section 35(2) of Article 4 of the Constitution be created to prohibit the governor from allocating any federal monies the governor accepts on behalf of the state without the approval of the legislature by joint resolution or as provided by legislative rule. So my interpretation, again, is at the bottom. The governor may not distribute any federal money except on behalf of the state. Let me read that because I said it wrong. The governor may not distribute any federal money accepted on behalf of the state of Wisconsin without approval of the legislature by joint resolution or as provided by legislative rule. Does that make sense? Did I lose you?
I think it's a simpler one to know the answer to, however you
Yes.
feel about it. But
Yes.
the question number 2 is, should we let the governor decide, or do we want to have the legislature get involved in it? Yes or no? That's
That's the bottom line.
the bottom line on that one, I think.
Yes, I totally agree.
I think it's an interesting question because the state of Wisconsin received funding a couple of decades ago to build light-speed rail between Madison and Milwaukee and Chicago, and we had accepted those funds. The governor had accepted those funds, and then the next governor gave them back.
No.
Yeah, Sandy remembers. So it's a two-way street. The governor, we had one governor accept the funds, and we had another governor say, no, we don't want that. And then that money was distributed to other states who were willing to put in light rail or high-speed rail. So it's a two-way street. And I often think that the legislature would really slow things down, especially in a disaster declaration where funds are needed almost immediately.
Yeah,
So,
definitely. You want to go ahead and read that next one, Kathy?
This one? In times when Wisconsin receives undesignated federal funds from the U.S. government, the Wisconsin Constitution does not limit the ability of the governor to choose how the funds he accepts are divided among state and local agencies. Question 2 would add a new provision to the Constitution to prohibit the governor from choosing how to allocate such federal funds he accepts unless the legislature, through a joint resolution or some other process to be developed by the legislature, agrees with the governor's proposed allocation of those funds. So the legislature would have to agree with the governor on where they should go rather than just giving the power to the executive branch. It's basically that question.
Yeah, and from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, this has been kind of a law that's been in place for 90-some years, I believe is what I heard.
Since the Constitution was written, isn't it?
Well, the Constitution was written in the
1843,
49.
48?
48, I think.
Okay, yeah. And I think that they were saying in the one webinar I listened to, it was 93 or 94 years that this ruling has been in place, and they're now wanting to change it. So,
Any questions? Cal?
Same question. Could the legislature change how the funds are designated?
I didn't hear you.
can the legislator change how the funds?
There's X amount of dollars that were given by the Fed. If the legislature votes on it, can they change or allocate where things go?
Yeah, if this passes,
If this passes,
they can do whatever they want. Now, I've heard some people have said, the governor's elected, and so is the legislature, so I'm like, everybody's elected. Yes, you might have more people looking on it, but then you get more people looking at it, look at the suing that just happened that the governor had to do in order to get the funds to be able to distribute. So it's a catch-22. There's different sides to the whole thing.
And I can see where some people have concerns because the state of Wisconsin received funds from the tobacco settlement. That money was supposed to have been allocated to address smoking prevention, and it was put into the transportation budget. So I can see where people would be very upset and angry about that and have long memories. But I think that that's the exception. I don't remember that happening again. Lisa, do you remember if it happened with another?
They tried to put their fingers in our Wisconsin retirement fund several times.
The legislature?
has.
Oh, the governor?
Well, the legislature,
Oh,
others have. I
Oh.
mean, yes, the governor has a lot of power. I mean, one way or the other, so does the legislature. But when they're trying to take money from one pot to the other,
yeah.
and what looks attractive, and
But that's an issue of responsible budgeting. That's
Very true.
not necessarily a constitutional amendment to have control over all the monies.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so, did I miss somebody? Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say that tobacco money thing, that was during Jim Doyle's governorship.
Yep.
And basically, the legislature wanted to fix a hole in the budget, so that's how they came up with it. That was a one-time settlement, which really didn't help with the general flow of where the budget needed to go. But that was a quick fix, and they grabbed that.
Yeah, and that's bad policy on everybody's part.
Right.
Agreed. Yeah. Wow.
I was just thinking of the flooding in the Wisconsin Dells area when we got a lot of FEMA money from there.
That was, when Blake
County
Delavan and
all this.
Sauk, yeah.
You would think that a reasonable governor and a reasonable legislature would agree on that.
On the distribution of the funds.
And work together on it. That's what you would want to have happen.
That's, I guess,
And
a
not
perfect
bog
word.
down the problem, bog down the process, I should say.
Yes, I totally agree. So on the question number 2, if you would vote to create, or a yes vote on question 2 would vote to create a second new provision of the Wisconsin Constitution, which would prohibit the governor from choosing how to allocate undesignated federal monies he accepts unless the legislature, by joint resolution or other process, agrees with the governor's proposed allocation of such funds. So it could really cause a little bit of a bottleneck. It can go either way. It could cause a bottleneck, it could not. It just depends on how everybody's working together and trying to do for the better for Wisconsin.
Yep, so it goes to the Joint Finance Committee, which is made up of leadership from both the Senate and the Assembly, and then it goes back to the respective houses for approval or denial or changes.
Yes. So it's more, as people like to call it, red tape. It just is more delay, more delay. If you vote no, of course, nothing's going to change. You're basically staying the same on it, which
Leave
is
it the way it is.
definitely,
Yeah, that's what it is. If you vote no, everything will stay the same in the Constitution.
yes, yes. That's exactly right. And if you vote yes, everything's going to change.
Going to change how the funds are.
How everything's
Hopefully they can work
distributed.
together. We've been hoping for that. Everywhere.
Yeah, we definitely do. That is,
And when will these, what is the date of the primary in which these will be presented?
so this is on the August 13th election. So it is coming up. And if you have questions, I know for myself, and I believe if you said, I heard that you did too, but I already have the ballots on display. So you can take a
they're out in
look
the
at the questions. You can see what's going to be on the ballot. So you can stop in at the city hall, or if you're from another location, you can drop in your city hall or town hall. They should have something displayed there so that you can see what is coming up.
I could just mention about the ballot. It has nothing to do with these referendums. But right at the beginning, it says party preference. If, for instance, you circle Democrat and vote for a Democrat and a Republican, only the Democrat will be counted. Same thing for Republican. If you don't circle a party and you cross over, voting it for a Democrat here and a Republican here, no votes will count. So you have to be kind of careful whether you're
That's a good reminder for people, Kathy. Thank you.
Well, you know, because, yeah, you want your vote to count.
Yes, you do. Yes.
Are there any other questions? Yes, sir, Art.
Well, it's more of a comment, but, you know, we have something that's, could be pretty impactful as far as the way our state government is run.
Yes.
But yet, they pick one of the lowest turnout elections possible
Yes.
to have something like this come up, which I think is a little under the table as far as I'm concerned. Also, too, is a lot of this comes about because of the ways Knowles Nelson stewardship money was supposed to be handed out. That was
Oh, yeah.
that Tony Evers sued the legislature over in joint finance, and the state Supreme Court ruled in his favor.
Right.
But one thing is with some of these, there's like anonymous holds that is put on in joint finance that, well, we don't want this project to go through. And there's no idea who said that or where it came from. I know there was one project where the legislator did come out and say that she was the one that was blocking it, but, you know, to me, that's not good government if you've got people who are working in the dark and the government, you know, the people themselves who are supposed to be the employers of these people have no clue as to what's going on.
Thank you. Yes, I often, and the clerks might have a better idea about this, but I tend to think that the partisan elections in the spring, such as the February primary, or the nonpartisan, as in February and then again in April, as well as this primary, although it is partisan, tends to have the hardcore voters turn out. I tend to be a little bit more optimistic about a small turnout, because those are many times the really engaged voters who understand what's going on.
I like to think so.
I hope so. Are there any other questions?
They vote in Brooklyn.
Well, thank you all for attending, and thank you, Naomi and Kathy, for participating and trying to clear up what these things mean. I think that people take a class in writing difficult referendum questions. I think I had to do it for Fond du Lac County a couple of times, and I remember trying to make it as simple as I could. But that's apparently not how everybody else rolls.
I think Lisa has a little bit of those skills, though, because she's always having to, she knows when this comes out, she sends out a paper soon after to all of us clerks to explain.
That's nice.
Because it's really hard to understand sometimes, you know? So,
And 18 fonts, because all notices for
Yes.
elections have to be in 18 fonts, so anything that gets put out for our election officials and stuff, that's why I always tell my clerks, I'm not doing it to waste paper or to help Midland or anything, but that is a state law. That anything that goes at the polling places have to be in any notices for the polling places have to be in 18 fonts. So they've all received it in Fond du Lac County, so that when they have the absentee voters come in, and I appreciate your comment. I'm very, very concerned on this being our absentee voters, that they stay within the party lines. That is,
Yeah.
we see so many ballots rejected
Yes.
in this partisan primary, and there's nothing, I mean, we're going to push the override button on the machine, so it is going to look like people's ballot did count, because, you know, we don't segregate that, of course. We don't just pull it out and not give that voter, because we do have voters that do not vote ballots. They will just send in their blank ballot to look like they voted. But
I don't understand.
No, people do it, no.
it's very sad when, you know, because I can look at the tape and see where ballots were not counted. I don't know the voter. I don't.
Right, because it's
I don't know the voter.
no, it's an aggregate. It's an aggregate.
Officials know the voter, obviously, because they're putting in the absent voter's ballot, and they know it came up on the screen that it.
Oh,
But, you know, that's a confidential thing that they should not be spreading around. So
Right.
there is one other point of interest. There is another state referendum on the November ballot.
oh, and what will that one be?
That you are a legal resident to vote in the state of Wisconsin.
Well,
The Constitution is written
yeah.
but it's not written that way. It is not, and other states, non-citizens can vote.
Oh, really?
4 or 5 states that non-residents, we actually had a Zoom call on today with Wisconsin County Clerks and Wisconsin Elections Commission, and there are 4 or 5 states that you do not have to be a U.S. citizen. I don't know the criteria, I didn't check into it, but I was aware of that. I think California and New York is one of them, but it is certified, or it's more of a, we'll see what the League of Women Voters come up on that and everything else, but somebody did read the Constitution and what the wording is. I have the wording for the November one, but I can get it to you, but I don't want it out there because people are gonna, although I might get people to come in and vote, we might get extra people.
yeah, you might, go Lisa, go.
Elections, because people, you know, even when we have the Supreme Court candidates campaigning back in April already, people come in and say, well, I just saw this Supreme Court candidate, why isn't it on my ballot? So I don't like to go ahead.
Yeah, it's
on elections
confusing.
Because it confuses the voter and frustrates the voter.
Oh,
Yep,
yeah, makes
yep.
sense.
Yep. Well, thank you, everyone. I hope this helps people. Oh, did Art have another question?
I was just wondering, you know, say you have a crossover and you haven't marked a party, Does that affect also the questions for the referendum?
No.
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 No, but I actually, as we're sitting here, I'm like going, I'm testing ballots right now back in Fond du Lac before I get it out, and I did not do that as a test. I have been testing and testing and testing, and I have not done that, because I will need to go back and program, because I believe I will have to check though, that
But
it should, the referendum should.
If you vote in person and you do that, you can have another ballot. It'll be rejected. It's only the absentee that we can't do anything about. If they're coming as an absentee and the person's not there, then we can't do anything. Oh, you
I
do?
recommend to people on radio shows and everything else, and as much as I can, that people should fill in the party.
I think it's
And
better.
that
Yeah.
way, if they vote for Tammy
clear.
Baldwin and Lisa Freiberg and they voted Democrat, the ballot will count. So reminding people that you know are voting, fill in that party. Lisa Freiberg won't get, I'm on the Republican side.
Right.
Lisa Freiberg will not get the vote, but Tammy Baldwin will. So it's very, very, and we'll tell that, you know, it's not required that you fill in the
Right.
oval for your party, but reminding people and absentee voters in person, you know, if you want to make sure your party, because we still have people that say the last time they voted, they got to vote on both party sides. No, you didn't. This has
Never.
been 1900 since we've
Yeah.
been doing that in Wisconsin.
Yep.
Yeah, you got, people have to understand, there's 5 elections on one ballot,
Yeah.
because there's 5 parties on this ballot.
And everyone's encouraged, no matter what, if you have questions, to contact the county clerk, the city clerk, the town clerk, the village clerk, whatever it is that you're at. That's what we're here for, is to answer questions and help you out to make it a very, very successful election.
Right, and the league encourages people to vote and be informed about what they vote.
Yes.
People have differing opinions on things, people identify with different parties.
Right.
What we aim to do, and our goal is to educate voters, to explain things to them. So thank you both for helping us do that this evening.
Our pleasure.
Thank you all.